Over the last few years, Darren and I have talked a lot about tiling, and if you watch Ag PhD every week, you might be getting sick of us talking about tiling, but it's so important and it's so misunderstood that we just want to continue to go into this in a little bit more detail. And the best time of the year for tiling is coming up here just over these next couple of months.
I think that's really the biggest thing, Brandon. We get a lot of questions from people about, okay, how do you do this tiling in crop? You know, I was watching your show and I saw somebody tiling right through some small soybeans or some small corn. Boy, that's going to tear up a lot of yield, isn't it?
No, it hasn't shown up negatively on our combine yet. And we've been tiling in crop. Probably 70% of all the tiling we've ever done has been in crop. I love doing it then because it's warm, the days are long, and it's pretty easy to get guys to work and put in a lot of hours and get a lot of tile in per day. We can easily get 4 miles of tile in ourselves with just a couple of people helping. But you know what? When it gets to be December and you're doing this after harvest and the temperature's about 15 degrees outside and guys have to jump down in the pit and work with water, we don't get a lot of volunteers.
No, not nearly as nice. And when you think about it, now we're not talking about if you're doing 10-foot spacings, pattern tiling through the whole field. Yeah, in crop might not be the best time. If that was your case and you said, hey, I have to do that for my really heavy soils that I've got, put the mains in at least.
Right.
Then in the fall, it'll be real easy to run those laterals off the main because the main a lot of times is the big job. So you can get that out of the way and hey, that main is already going to start improving your drainage in your field and then you can just add those laterals to it later on.
Okay, earlier in the show I said that we actually last year saw really good yields in a dry year in tiled areas. The reason why, just so you understand this, is all tile does is lowers the water table. Doesn't take all the moisture out of the soil, doesn't just run whenever it rains, it only runs when the water table rises above the level of the tile. Well, if we've got a water table that let's say is at a foot, well, what's going to happen with the roots when they hit that water table? They're dead. Roots are not going to grow down into a water table. Okay, so early in the spring last year, in a lot of areas like around us, we had plenty of moisture right away. And so our roots in untiled areas were going down a foot and then they were done. So where did they grow next? Well, then they started putting laterals out and we had a whole bunch of shallow roots. Well, did that do us much good last year? When it got to the middle of the summer, we hadn't had rain in 2 months? No, I wanted deeper roots. So where we had tile, then we had the water table down to 3 or 4 feet, so our roots were able to get down much deeper earlier in the season, and that's why we did so well late in the season in a lot of areas.
Well, the other thing comes back to nutrients, Brian, and when you think about that, when you can get a root system that's down 3 feet and is extensive, you're going to bring in a lot of nutrition out of that soil. When we get a dry year like we had last year, the top few inches dry out first, and for the guys that had those shallow root systems, they weren't able to bring in those nutrients. So not only did shallow water kill roots off, then it got dry, it was a double whammy.
So if tiling is done right, it's great for the environment, it's great for the landlord, it's great for your community, and it's especially great for your yields.
Well, the other thing this year, it was quite the opportunity year for getting drain tile work done. When you think about a drought that extends across the entire country, that's really bad on a lot of fronts. The one thing that was good about the drought is that there's some fields that have been tough to get in. The guy said, man, I can actually get out there and get some tile in now. And this spring, even in areas that have gotten a whole bunch of rainfall over the winter and early spring, guys are getting into those fields earlier than they ever have before. I know on our farm that was certainly the case on some of our toughest ground that we had. When we finally got tile in there, we could farm end to end. And it took about half the time to farm the ground. It was fantastic. We didn't get stuck. We didn't have equipment problems. Think about that this spring as you're planting crop and you say, man, I've been dry in my area. There's probably still some spots out there that are going to be tough for you to get through with equipment. You could fix that in one shot and it'd be good really for the rest of the time you're farming.
Okay, one last thing. I was just talking to a farmer this morning about burning residue so he could get into the ground. I said, put tile in the ground. On these acres where you have to burn year after year, you don't need to in the future. If you get that tile in the ground, you lower the water table, it will allow you to get in earlier in the spring, because don't ever forget, dry ground warms up way faster than wet soil.
Well, when it comes to tiling, doing it in crop very early in the season is the best time to do it. There's great conditions to get that done right now, so take a look at that on your farm. One other thing to keep an eye out for is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.